During the inquiry process, the teacher is engaged in an ongoing assessment of student work to determine next instructional steps. Collaborative moderation of student work helps teachers become very precise and personal in their teaching in order to meet the diverse needs of all students. They find evidence of students' strengths and needs in their writing, then decide on what actions to take to move the learning forward. Language and word study is woven throughout the teaching and learning process. Moderation of student work informs how groups will be formed to provide differentiated instruction.
Here's a child who really surprised me because he wouldn't share for the longest time, and then finally when he does share, he has so much poetry in his words. So here's his piece. Tonight there is no bright moon in the sky. All I see is darkness. I feel the wind just brush against my face. I also hear my feet crunch in the snow every step I take. I feel a tiny snowflake on my head. It feels like... And then he's tried to work a word there and he's left it blank. I'm in a twinkly diamond shining like a star because there's so much ice in front of me. The world is going to be cool and colder tomorrow, I hope.
Kenzie has a lot to work with here. I see some real strength in his writing. There is something almost poetic, some strong imagery. In certain parts, he has really awkward phrasing.
That's right.
And I think where that might be coming from is in his effort to sound poetic and to include those really descriptive words that create strong visual images. He's grouping them in such a way that he's taking away from the impact that he could be having.
Right.
I think word choice is also an issue, as you mentioned.
Right.
He couldn't find the just right word here. And then at the bottom, the world is going to be cool and cold tomorrow.
I hope. It's very fractured.
Well, and the fact that he used cool and cold. Essentially the same idea. Could the world not be cool or cold and something else?
Right. Right. So next steps for Mackenzie, like lessons on word choice.
Absolutely. A little bit on sentence structure, I think. He has some issues with plural and singular. And again, that awkward phrasing that's taking away from the impact that his writing could have.
Right.
And I know there's another student we're going to discuss, and we saw something in her work right away. In his case, line breaks may also be a next step. Tonight, there is no bright moon in the sky. All I see is darkness.
That would make it more powerful.
It's more powerful than the run-on sentence that's happening. Tonight there's no bright moon in the sky. All I see is darkness. I feel the wind.
Just brush against my face. And there's the first sentence.
There's the first sentence.
Yeah. Yeah. So breaking it up a little bit more, line breaks. Yeah. So form, word choice.
But the good news is he really is experimenting with language. He clearly enjoys the reading strategy of visualization, and he works to create that for the people reading his work. And he's trying to incorporate some of the vocabulary that you have taught in class.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to build on here.
Okay. All right, let's look at Jillian's over here. So, yeah, okay, so there's a little story behind Jillian's.
Okay.
You'll see as we read this first piece, I could see where to go next, and she's shown that the very next day. But now I'm wondering what the next steps are for her.
Okay.
After this. So here we go with Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, how I wonder where you are. The world is waiting for you and the moon to come and play above our heads in the dark blue sky. Tonight I smell a barbecue. How good it smelt, and when I looked down on the snow it shimmered in the outside lights. I also saw some little shades of very light blue. It almost looked like a big ribbon, and a pink one too. It was a beautiful night, but not without the moon. That almost looks like a silver rock in the night sky.
Very interesting.
So there's lots of visuals there, but there's quite a few awkward sentences as well. Like this part here, tonight I smell a barbecue. How good it smelled. It doesn't really seem to flow.
It doesn't fit with the rest of the piece. She has strong voice, but she also needs to know that she doesn't need to include everything and really organize her ideas in terms of what fits with this piece.
Right.
I really liked her opening.
How I wonder where you are. Yeah.
And playing
She played
on
with that.
poetry and a familiar rhyme and using that to catch her reader's attention as a hook at the beginning. She understands leads quite well.
Drawing the reader in. I liked down here how she said the sky was shades of very light blue. It almost looked like a big ribbon. It's starting to create pictures in your mind. And further down at the bottom, the moon looked like a silver rock in the night sky.
And so she's starting to play with simile and metaphor, but she doesn't quite get it yet. If she'd taken it that next step to the sky is like a ribbon of blue.
Right, instead of leaving out the obvious.
That's right. And again, I think it goes back to what you were saying about some of those awkward phrases. Too many words are getting in her way.
Right. So again, word choice. You don't need to say it all. You can show it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So over here we have this piece. Finally, the moon is out with his buddies, the little star, and one shines like a rocket's fire. So there's that, simile piece coming in there. I don't know if that word is supposed to be here. Spark.
Looks like she's erased it.
Yeah. The moon looks like a smile, smiling at me, while the other side hides behind a big cloud. Still the snow shimmers in the outside and moonlight. The stars are so tiny, but I still can see them. The air smells fresh. When I peep out my window, I still see the moon, so I went to bed, and in my head, I said, "Good night, stars and moon."
Interesting. So she's really starting to consolidate the idea of simile and metaphor. Would this be after a subsequent lesson in class on that topic?
Exactly. Yeah. So what would be my next steps here?
Well, again, she has the strong lead. She now has a good understanding of simile and metaphor and how to use it to create impact. I think she's growing in terms of a conclusion, wrapping up Good Night, Stars and Moon. And she's playing with poetry a little bit. She's starting to include some rhyme. I still see the moon, so I went to bed, and in my head I said.
Right.
But she's almost taken it a step too far.
Yeah.
And it may be a case of less is more for her.
A little, yes. Okay.
And if she is going to play with poetry, then she really needs to work with line breaks.
Work with mine. So, because it looks like she wants to, because she's trying to rhyme a little bit here, and as well as using the different similes. So if she wants to do that, maybe form it a little.
I think so. I think she's ready for that next step.
Okay. The way